For the past 2 years, Saudi Arabia's state-owned oil producer Saudi Aramco has been leaving its customers wanting more. Its output is 7 million barrels lower than demand every day. Other OPEC member countries are also limiting their output under a deal struck in 2017. Now they've agreed to extend production cuts till March next year.
We believe that an extension of 9 months is preferable to 6 months, as it offers greater certainty to the market, thereby reducing market volatility.
Although it's not a part of OPEC, Russia has been working with the cartel to limit global oil supplies, a role it says it will continue to play.
Yes, indeed, we have discussed the possibility of the extension of our deal with OPEC on the production cuts. We have agreed we will extend our deal.
This means OPEC members and Russia will keep producing 1.2 million fewer barrels of oil per day than they did back in 2016. Extending the output cuts will push OPEC's share in the global market below 30% for the first time since 1991. But the announcement's driven up crude prices by nearly 3% on Monday, helping suppliers earn more on every barrel. Iran's also on board with OPEC's decision, but it accuses Riyadh and Moscow of dominating the cartel.
The important thing to me is that OPEC remains OPEC. It has lost its authority and it is on the verge of collapse.
Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia says Iran is flouting its agreement with other producers.
I think there is a lot of oil that is leaving the shores of Iran or the borders of Iran that is not accounted for as Iranian oil, and it's presenting in the markets, and therefore we're not seeing as much demand for other crudes.
Despite the tensions, analysts say limiting output to boost profits works for all oil exporting countries, and the mutual benefits should ensure they stick with the cartel, at least for now. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
Guarav Sharma joins me now live from London for more on this. He is an oil market analyst. Thank you for joining us here on Money Talks. What is behind this decision by OPEC to extend the cuts, not just another 6 months, but another 9 months into 2020?
Good to be back on the program. I think one key thing that we can take out of this is that this rollover had largely been priced in by the market. Now, the primary reason for that is that OPEC and non-OPEC players, both parties came together in 2016. They decided to do the cuts, but they don't have any exit strategy. And that seems to be what is problematic, which is why even before the meeting began, a lot of ministers offered sound bites saying 6 to 9 months would be quite palatable. As it appears, they're going to go for 9 months. That's because simply they don't know how to end this. They've started this. They hope that when they brought these production cuts, they will balance the global inventories. They have more or less achieved that aim, but it keeps falling short of their inventory rebalancing exercise by about 30 million barrels. Now, what that has triggered is, in the interim, they have lost market share, and the American barrels, courtesy rising shale production, stepped into the breach. So in a certain sense, they've kind of failed in their objective to try to prop up the price, because more and more American barrels keep coming onto the market. Now, the question is, they've agreed to this because they've kicked the can further down the road. They really don't know how to sort of extract themselves from the situation.
Mm-hmm. So how much of a challenge is it right now to control the oil market? We have Mideast tensions, which are threatening to cause a spike in oil prices, but at the same time, there's a global economic slowdown, which is weighing them down.
You know, if we rewinded the clock back to, say maybe 5 to 8 years, and more American barrels had not come onto the market, then you would see a premium in the oil price of at least $10. Now the situation is different. A lot of commentators like to call the United States, the new swing producer. I don't think so. What the United States has done is it has become a buffer producer. A, it doesn't need as much oil from the global pool. B, that's also had an impact on its foreign policy. So when these tensions, these flare-ups happen, Mr. Trump will always jump in with his Twitter account, and all sorts of sound bites will come. But at the end of the day, the tension as it stands, the American barrels are heading eastwards. American barrels of light crude are stepping into the breach, and all these cargoes are heading out to Asia, the biggest oil markets, the biggest region in terms of oil consumption. And what that has done is that it has complicated the situation quite a bit for OPEC.
So is OPEC in danger then, given all the competition from the United States, which is the world's biggest oil producer now?
You see, before they started this drive under the old oil minister of Saudi Arabia, Mr. Ali Al-Naimi, he said, let the market compete. And he was not in favor of cuts. Now, because the price then fell drastically, if you recollect in 2016, we had sub-$30 oil prices. OPEC simply had to react. They had a new oil minister, who's now the oil minister, Mr. Khalid Al-Falih. And then he got the Russians together to institute this 1.2 million barrels per day cut. But how effective is it? It's the Saudis who are carrying most of the can. They can't extract themselves from the situation, and the market is in a bit of a bind. And now they've decided to roll over the cuts. The primary beneficiaries of these cuts rollovers would be the American producers, who will get price stability. Yet at the same time, if more and more barrels come, it'd be good for importers like India, like China, like Turkey, that they can tap into the global supply pool at relatively low oil prices. So, at some point, OPEC has to come out of this tricky situation. And right now, it doesn't feel like they have a strategy. So what's happening is, as your colleague alluded to in his broadcast, that their production is now less than a third of the global market. And they are in real danger of losing their relevance.
A tricky situation indeed. Guarav Sharma, thank you.